Roughly two-thirds of the world drives on the right today. The remaining third keeps to the left. Neither side is backward. They are simply loyal to decisions made centuries ago. What makes this division fascinating is that it did not begin with cars. It began with armies and railways. In pre-modern Europe,
understand that neither
as
system
we've seen,
is incorrect.
many regions kept left for defensive reasons while riding horses. But when Napoleon Bonaparte expanded his influence across the continent in the early 19th century, his armies marched on the right. This standardization was not just about orderly movement. It also helped distinguish allies from enemies. When an army of tens of thousands, comparable to the population of a small town, moves under a unified rule, that rule often becomes civil law in the territories it controls. Picture an army of 50, 000 soldiers crossing a border. If each person occupies roughly half a meter in width when marching in formation, the column can stretch for dozens of kilometers. Under those conditions, a unified direction of movement is not aesthetic preference. It is logistical necessity. Territories under French control gradually adopted right-side traffic to align with military and administrative standards. Even after Napoleon's defeat, many regions retained the system because their infrastructure had already been reorganized around it. Meanwhile,
definitely join the festival
in Britain, a nation Napoleon never conquered, the tradition of keeping left remained intact and was formalized into law. As Britain entered the Industrial Revolution and built an extensive railway network, it exported not only machinery but also technical standards. Railways differ from roads in one crucial way. Once tracks are laid, reversing their operational direction is nearly impossible without dismantling the entire system. A single kilometer of railway can weigh hundreds of tons of steel. Altering it would mean enormous expense. When British engineers helped construct Japan's first railway lines in the late 19th century, they brought left-side operational standards with them. Trains ran on the left. Platforms were designed accordingly. Signaling systems followed the same orientation. Later, when automobiles became widespread, Japan chose left-side driving to remain consistent with its rail infrastructure. A technical decision made by a group of foreign engineers ultimately shaped the traffic behavior of more than 120 million people across generations. This pattern spread through colonial influence and trade relationships. In countries shaped by British systems, transportation networks developed around left-side movement. In regions influenced by France and other continental European powers, right-side traffic became the default. When automobiles emerged in the early 20th century, they did not create new rules. They adapted to existing networks. Infrastructure came first, vehicles followed. This global split creates intriguing transition points. At borders between countries with opposite driving directions, engineers must design overpasses or special interchanges to twist the flow of traffic without causing head-on conflict. Designing these junctions requires precise calculation of lane-shifting trajectories over several hundred meters, enough space for vehicles. Traveling at 80 kilometers per hour to reposition safely. At 80 kilometers, a vehicle moves about 22 meters per second. In just 10 seconds, it covers more than 200 meters. That distance must be engineered carefully to prevent accidents. Some nations have switched sides to align with their neighbors. Sweden is a notable example, changing from left side to right side, driving in 1967 to harmonize with most of continental Europe. The operation required replacing hundreds of thousands of road signs and modifying entire bus fleets. The motivation was not biology or military alignment, but trade and cross-border safety. When trucks move daily between countries, differences in driving direction become economic friction. What stands out is this: a military decision from the 19th century and a railway engineering standard from the same era divided the modern world into two parallel traffic systems. Electric vehicles, lidar sensors, lane keeping assistance all operate within that inherited framework. Technology evolves rapidly. Collective behavioral foundations evolve slowly. If tomorrow the entire globe agreed to adopt a single unified driving direction, the cost would be staggering. It would involve far more than repainting lane markings. It would require redesigning intersections, modifying bus door placements, relocating toll booths, and retraining millions of drivers. Transportation systems function as complex networks. Altering one variable triggers cascading effects throughout the system. So when you drive on the right or on the left, you are participating in a centuries-long legacy of power and infrastructure. No modern sensor can erase that imprint. History does not reside only in museums. It lives beneath your wheels. If an emperor and a handful of railway engineers could shape the daily habits of billions, how many other standards today are quietly being determined by choices that appear purely technical?
During the upload.
We can continue tracing these hidden butterfly effects in everyday life. The next time you look at a familiar road sign, you might see behind it not just paint and metal, but a map of influence stretching across centuries.